All right, we're going to start our final session today, thank you. So I'd like to introduce Nicole Fimple. She's Executive Director, Rules and Standards at AAR in DC. Been there for about, 5 years? Came from RailLink, was at RailLink for about 40 years, a very important person at RailLink, and has lots of to add to us. Actually, we're really happy, seriously, to have her in this role from the Pueblo perspective because of her knowledge of how RailLink works. It's helped me immensely in what I do at Pueblo with standards, so appreciate that. And welcome, and introduce your panel. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dave. So thank you to all of you that stuck around and you're attending the monumental last ever March session. So we have our name change coming in, so this is it. It's going to be the AR Interchange Rules Panel, and we'll do what we've done similar to what we've done in the past few years. Each member here has a topic that they'll talk to you about, and then we'll ask you if you have any questions. I've got some additional items in case there's not a lot of questions for filler. But I'll go ahead and get started. To my left, to my immediate left is Gary Nelson with Sidney & Lowe. Gary is a member of the ARB committee, and he is next in line to be vice chair. So at the end of this year, he will step into that role. Gary has over 40 years of experience with freight car repair, AAR billing and recovery. He championed Six Sigma projects on ensuring proper repairs are made and the accurate recovery is achieved. He managed car shops making program repairs to rail cars. Gary began his career with Norfolk and Western Railway as a carman helper. After achieving the position of journeyman, Carman began a career in supervision throughout several locations on the Norfolk Southern system. He attained several levels of responsibility and management and retired from NS in 2012 as Division Manager Mechanical Operations assigned to the Illinois Division. He joined Progress Rail and Sidney & Lowe Railroad in August of 2012, and in 2017 he became Director of Operation Freight Car Repair, and today he's going to speak about car repair billing methods. To Gary's left is Jamie Williams, which he was introduced earlier, so I will not read his bio, but Jamie is the Vice Chair of ARB right now, and will step into the role of Chair in January. And Jamie's going to speak on purchase core wheel sets. To left of left of Jamie is Chris Shorts from NS. Chris is not a member of the Arbitration Rules Committee, but he has actually been sitting on a lot of the ARB tags. The knowledge and experience he has added great value. Chris has been employed by NS since 2005 in roles that include freight car repairer, multiple managerial positions, and currently a car maintenance engineer. As a car maintenance engineer, he's managed derailment reporting and AAR settlement, leased equipment maintenance, and home shop, JIC, and third-party repair processes. Chris represents Norfolk Southern on several industry tags, including DDCT, early warning, and the Air E-Train project. And Chris is going to talk about the early warning rewrite and Rule 125. And all the way to the left, we have Jerry Bohasic with CF Rail Services. Jerry is an ARB member as well, and he's currently the Vice President, Business Optimization at CF Rail Services, a Sasser family holdings company. Jerry has been in railcar maintenance for over 40 years, performing numerous positions, of some of which are VP Repair Operations, General Manager of Maintenance Services, Director of North American Rail Operations and Network Services, Manager of Contracted Maintenance, Manager of New Car Specifications and Acquisitions. That's just to name a few. In addition to being an ARB member, Jerry is also on the Equipment Health Monitoring Committee, and that's a huge benefit that we see, as Dave mentioned, with my coming from RailLink. Having that cross-pollination is very helpful. Jerry's also a member of MARTS and a board member of MARTS, and has participated in various other industry initiatives. And Jerry's going to speak to us about the circular letter system and how to use it. So we'll get started with Mr. Nelson.
Well, you know, I find it kind of funny when you get as old as I am, it takes longer to do the intro and bio than it will to do the topic that I'm going to talk about. But it's an exciting topic, and I know you'll all be fired up about it as much as I am, because it's about money. It's about the AAR recovery rate and where we're headed with it, or where we plan to be headed with it anyway, what the introduction we'll make at the ARB meeting will be. But I guess to talk about where we're going, we need to talk about where we've been just a little bit. So the history is that this car repair billing has been in place for many years. In fact, it goes back to when railroads pretty much owned most, if not all, of the equipment, and railroads repaired most, if not all, of the running repairs that were done to that equipment. So it's just a cost recovery type of situation, and the idea was to expedite repairs, to keep cars in service, to get them repaired quickly and back in there with no loss for either the repairing party or the purchasing party or the car repair owner. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, things have changed over the years. In fact, the complexion of how cars are repaired is a lot different. A few years back, private car owners were concerned that it wasn't the same as it once was. And the reason it wasn't the same is because it wasn't just repairs being done by railroads, but the running repair agents, in fact, at that time, were making up around 25% of the repairs that were made. So their concern was that the cost structure wasn't the same for a running repair agent or for short lines or for non-Class 1 railroads as it was for Class 1 railroads. So they asked to take a look at it, and there were several proposals reviewed. The AAR and Railroad Law Departments got involved in looking into this, and we didn't make a lot of headway, quite frankly. We had some ideas that looked like they might grab some traction, but they met a lot of resistance. So we didn't get too far with that, so we kind of went back to the drawing board and started over again. And what we've come up with is what you would call a blended rate. And what the blended rate really means is you take a look at how the process works. The current process is that the Class 1s have three things that they have to submit. Class 1s submit the base wage rate, which is really kind of an automatic because that's a publicly drawn figure. And then there's the overhead study that the Class 1s do, and then there's the material survey that they're involved in. And now on the material survey, that can go beyond just the Class 1s, but that's a part of what's going on right now. And then there's also the car repair billing tag that's for the actually the time standards tag, which that's just what determines how much per repair, how much time per repair based on the rate is done. So the process for the blend that is proposed would be a little bit different in that it would no longer just be the 7 Class 1s, but it would also include at least 2 non-Class 1 railroads and at least 2 running repair agents. Now, they also would have to participate in all 3 surveys, or all 3 collections, which is, again, base wage rate, overhead study, and the material study. But they'd have to participate in all 3. So that would include all 7 Class 1s, at least the top 2 billers from the non-Class 1 railroads, and then the top 2 billers from the running repair agents. Others could participate, but it's our desire that at least those would participate. And again, they would have to participate in all 3. So the way the base wage rate works is the Class 1 railroad data is public information. So AAR draws that, and the Class 1s don't have to furnish it. Now the change will be that the non-Class 1s and the running repair agents will have to furnish that information somehow. That's yet to be determined how that would happen. The overhead study that is currently being done by the Class 1s will also have to be done by the non-Class 1s that participate in this and by the running repair agents. So to take a look at it, how that might work with the weighted average, you consider that the Class 1 railroads now make up 80% of the car repair billing that goes through data exchange. The non-Class 1 railroads make up about 11%, and the running repair agents make up about 9%. So there's your total. So when if you were to go to weight it out, that's the way it would break down. So to go a little bit farther with it, if you took a look at the non-Class 1 railroads, the 2 top billers, for instance, if we looked at a weighted average, Railroad 1 provides 20% of the billing, Railroad 2, 15%, so you would extrapolate that out throughout the entire billing from the short lines or the non-Class 1s, and you would weight that. Another way of doing that would be to just collect those two, divide it by 2, and that would be the actual rate for those. So there's a couple ways to look at it. That's not yet been determined. I don't know that either one's going to be that much different than the other, but it's a couple of ways of looking at it for analysis. And then you would look also at the material pricing. Currently, the material pricing really comes from the 7 Class 1s, so it's nearly 15%, just a little over 14% each. But if you add the 2 new categories, one being the non-Class 1 railroads and the other being the running repair agents, that comes to just over 11% each. So each of those that provide the material surveys would make up 11.11%. So again, they could either go a straight average on those for the non-Class 1s and the running repair agents, or a weighted average. That's not yet been determined, and again, I don't think it's going to be a huge difference between the two. And then in addition to that, those participating, it would be a requirement going forward for the Class 1s, for the 7 Class 1s, and for those participating in the non-Class 1s, it would be a 3-year commitment. The same thing for the running repair agents. It would be a 3-year commitment for what we hope to be the top billers from running repair agents, the top 2 at least billers from running repair agents, and the top 2 billers through data exchange for the non-Class 1 railroads. If others choose to get involved as well, that'd be great, but they too would be in a commitment for 3 years. And then the AAR would review that periodically to see how that's going, to ensure that the billing does change, of course, in who is the top billers from running repair agents in particular, but also for the non-Class 1 railroads. So as that changes, that would need reevaluated. As we look at it, because of the steps we'll have to go through in the preparation, the earliest possible full implementation of this would be January of 2020. And of course, for the new participants in this, they need to understand, just like the current participants, that all this information remains confidential. What they supply to AAR stays in Las Vegas. I mean AAR.
Thanks, Gary. So just another note, we've had a couple town halls. This concept is not fully baked. As Gary said, there's a few things there that the details need to be flushed out. Part of the reason for that is the last idea that was completely flushed out, there was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of negative feedback. So we've got this to a point where the concept is pretty much agreed upon. We're going to bring it to ARB later this month, and we expect them to give the go-ahead to move forward, get the details, and lay out the plan. Jamie.
All right, so the topic I'm going to talk about is purchase core wheel sets. There's been an initiative to look at taking wheel sets that become off of a scrap car, retired equipment, so forth, and injecting them back into the industry and having a way to recuperate cost from that. And one thing to know, it's not something that's been strange to the industry. It's being done, you know. I know we've done it for years and years, and essentially at the end of the day, we take those wheel sets, we put them into the marketplace and actually just lose money. Over the years, it was a way to kind of offset from when new plates were out there, or there may be shortages or so forth. So there's a lot of different reasons why that this would occur. But simply the thing is, in order to get them in, we've got to be able to have a means for the end user to be able to recuperate costs associated with a purchase turn. And you say, well, it's a turn. That's right, but there's a turn cost out there, or there's a reimbursement price for a turned wheel. But if a railroad goes out on the open market, or a private car owner or a private repair shop, and purchases turned wheels to put into the mix, then you lose money, because there's the core charge, there's all of the other factors that bleed into that essentially makes it upside down, and it's not feasible to really use. So as we go forward, and as ARB has ruled, we've approved putting in purchase core wheel sets with the caveat that there were some rules going in around how that we would mark those, making sure that that a wheel is a true purchase core and we'd be able to identify it should it be built and put underneath the car. And so my two colleagues to the left and Gary to my right, they've all been part of this tag that's been assembled to look at those rules and come up with a way that we can identify these core wheels and get them into the market. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to these gentlemen and any questions from you all or anything that they would like to add to that.
Yeah, sure. I'll add to it. So the tag was formed because there was concerns on the data to support what a purchase core was, or I should say the information supporting a purchase core. So the tag has met several times, including face-to-face, and we went through all the concerns that were voiced. We compiled them all, and we came up with a structure that we thought would be the correct structure to identify that the purchase core was truly a purchase core. So it has been identified, it's been documented, and where we're at right now is RailLink is a key player in making that happen. They need to determine how much and how long it's going to take to get that done. And our goal, and I say goal, and Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, but our goal is to still try to get this implemented by the first of the year, but we can't without the data, without the support. So I think all of the concerns, I shouldn't say all, I should say the concerns that would have prevented it from going in have been identified through a data structure that is in process of being accomplished.
Right, so ARB will review all the output from the tag, and they'll have the timeline that RailLink puts out there, and they'll decide on that, and we'll issue a circular letting you know whether it's going forward and when, shortly after, I'd probably say in mid to late October.
I think we have a call next week. Is it Monday?
Yes.
So we should have some sort of update then.
Any questions for the group? All right, Chris.
All right, so I'm covering alert management, modernization. If you were here for the AHSI presentation, Chip mentioned the modernization of the early warning system. Truly, it's going to be an update to the entire system, early warnings, maintenance advisories included. In 2018, we worked with RailLink to update the MC logic, the activity code MC, for inspected, return to service, further inspection required. So that was implemented earlier this month and should be available for use by AAR. We identified and documented the requirements for the new system, published a white paper, got sign-off from all parties involved. The system is going to include updated and simplified severity codes. Some of the legacy codes will be knocked off and simply combined with another code for simplicity purposes, basically. The system is going to go from the early warning and maintenance advisory dual system to a 3-level system. Mechanical safety concerns being the highest warning, special instructions a little bit lower, and then informational message, which is simply your DDCT type messages, information only that don't necessarily require handling. And the way that the intent of this is that we can easily progress between it's going to be a single line progression. So each equipment can progress either way throughout the system easily. And we can provide information for large populations of cars without affecting railroad operations. And when I say that, I mean this. Today, when there's a large population for an early warning or an MA, the cars are throttled. They're not all put onto the warning at one time so that we don't halt operations across North America. In the future, we will be able to apply these messages to cars, and when you think of why made 61 wheels, when it's on your RIP track, the information will be available to you. You'll be able to handle the car, but it wasn't necessarily taken out of service for that purpose. So the car is remaining into service. The population will be adjusted by the system so that the right amount of cars are being handled in a timely manner. But if the car comes across a RIP and you can handle a car prior to it being assigned officially, we can take care of that as well. So I think that that's going to bring some benefit to both the owners of the equipment and to the railroads. RailLink is going to support a private notice system. A lot of the railroads and the car owners have these, or some of them anyway. I don't know if a lot is the proper word, but they're going to support an internal system for a car owner / railroad to apply internal messaging to cars. If you would like messaging on your equipment to be broadcast to your owned shops or personnel, then that capability will be available to you through RailLink. And if these private notices can be forwarded to the AAR for suggestion of these other maintenance advisories. So if you identified a problem and you have an internal private notice created and you think it's an industry issue or a bigger issue than you originally thought, that private notice can be progressed to the AAR. There will be updated messaging capabilities. There's going to be a self-service data refresh capability. So if any of our systems, our internal systems, go out of sync, we can ad hoc refresh, get back in sync with the industry, and make sure that we're not missing any of these alerts. I spoke of the 3 alert types. The mechanical safety concerns are today's early warning or maintenance advisories, like your long travel, constant contacts, your reflectorizations. They need attention, and are severity up to interchange restricted. Then your special instructions are like your EHMS alerts, your bad actors, those type of alerts. And then, like I said, informational is DDCT type information. Instead of being on the same level as a required early warning that needs attention now, it won't have the same severity. So you won't have to, your folks, the railroad personnel won't have to give it the same attention. I think that's it. If there are any questions or comments.
So just to add to that a little bit, some of the questions we've gotten over the years are, can you notify the industry that we have cars that we're doing some testing with that we don't want people to touch? And we were asked to put those on an MA, but it didn't really make sense. An MA said stop the car and do something with it, where these alerts were, these advisories would have said stop the car, oh, don't do anything with it. So this new system is going to incorporate some of that. That'd be some of the special handling. So if there are test cars where you do not want the brakes worked on, or if there's special instructions similar to the old MA 146 that was out, we'd be able to handle it that way. Also, another thing is overage cars. We've gotten a lot of questions about how to handle cars that are getting ready to go over age so that they don't get stuck on someone's railroad. This may be a way we could handle that as well. Any questions for Chris on this? All right, Jerry.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. So I think we balanced the table here with the 2 old dogs on the end, and I'm going to fulfill what you said and keep mine short. I think you just mismeasured yours there. Snoozed in the middle and didn't know what your clock was running there, but you were...
I don't know if I'm the end of the table or not.
You're not on the table.
That's where I was looking.
So anyway, the reason I chose circulars is I've been in the rail industry maintenance for 42 years, and I can tell you that the vast majority of that time, when you talk to people about AAR rules, regulations, et cetera, everybody knows the field manual, everybody knows the reference, and everybody knows what you're talking about. It's an open book world, they know where to go look it up. Office manual, the same thing. There's never conversations about circulars and what is being done by circulars through the general population, at least my, my business offerings and my business associates. So with that said, I ask everyone and throughout the industry, do you get all the circulars? And if you get them, do you read them all? Because even if you get them and you don't read them, you're still not doing a justice to yourself. And the fact that circulars are the lifeblood of what happens daily through the AAR, through the industry. They're used informational, they're used for rule changes, they're used for potential changes that are asking for comments and stuff like that. So they're done by so many different committees, I couldn't even list them all, but just to give a few, wobble, they're constantly putting things out there with information, questions, comments, and changes. Air brake systems, same thing. I mean, we heard several presentations throughout this week about affecting brake systems. Open top loading, I think every other circular I see is something to do with open top loading. Doesn't mean they all have interest to you, but you should make sure that you know what is in them. All of those are ended with the person that scribed them, the committee they came from, and that's who you answer to. The executive director standing next to us here, most of them are assigned by her. And they also say the same thing, any questions, comments. So, comments are very important. If you have a question or a comment, there's a good chance that there's other people in the industry that have the same question or comment. And we all, at least through my career, we all tend to be too shy to ask the question. Ask it. Send it in and ask it, because what it will do is it will benefit the whole industry with the answer. We talk about every comment on every circular, and they all mean something. If you need clarification, somebody else also needs clarification. A lot of times what goes out on the circulars has been discussed by many people on many committees, but they're in tune to that topic, so they may say something that's at a higher level that they understand. Ask the question. It's the best thing you could do for the industry is ask the question. The last thing we want to do as a committee or as the AAR body is to publish something to have to send it out a second time because somebody brought something up that was relevant and should have been known to begin with because we were at too high of a level. Every comment is always reviewed. There's no such thing as it hits the file 13 when it comes in. Every comment to every committee gets reviewed. And I want to say every committee member on it gets it, but they at least get the communication that there is comments and what the content of those comments are. And did everybody see the circular, C-106? It was for the new implementation of EHS wild alerts. Oh, that was in 2007. So if you've heard me say that and you said, what's he talking about, new alerts? You should have acted that way because you're reading them, not because you were believing what I was saying. So my point is, you should never be surprised by any rule changes because they're always preceded by circulars that give you that information. Be part of the community that helps craft and get everything right. Jamie's topic was a good example. The purchase cores, it was vetted through AAR and it was passed. And then circular comments is what brought it back in to make what's considered to be the right method to accomplish that feat. So comments to circulars and reading them and knowing what's in them is a very, very important part that I believe the majority industry kind of looks over. They all know the field manuals, the Bible, and the office manuals, the other Bible, but circulars are really your invitation to be part of it. Everybody knows that when they look at the field manual, you see the line bars on the side, yeah, because that's a rule change. When you see that line bar, you should know that was part of a circular that I was already aware of. That rule change should not be a change to you. And if everybody passes that word and communicates it, we'll be a better industry. It will be a better industry for it. If you don't get circulars, contact somebody in your company and get them, because it's that important. You should faithfully read them, and start as soon as you can if you haven't been getting them. Your knowledge and comments will and do always make a difference.
Thanks, Jerry. Any other questions? So this one's a very general question, but where are we at with reflectorization right now?
I won't answer. Well, we had looked at putting out a rule that says that the reflectorization could be addressed at any time when on a shop or repair track. And so I think that had, and you may want to add in some on this too, Nicole, as far as...
We haven't sent that to the industry yet.
Right.
Right.
But that's one of the things that we're looking at that is needed, because there are, we meet resistance with FRA on reflectorization and different things, so that's something that we need to get out back in EEC and then out to the industry, which is having the ability to address it just when on shop or repair track and not at time of single car test and limiting it to that. Because that equipment is going back out into the train yard, and when our friends with the feds are there, then they take exception to more than 20%, and then the car's coming back in, and guess what? You don't have a way to bill for it. So, and it's not really consistent with what the federal regulation says in respect to the 20%, because it's actually tied back to the time of single car test, but they're not interpreting it that way. So it's causing a little bit of heartburn there.
Yep. And then all of the changes regarding the panels, the comparative panels, those changes are still pending, and I don't think that those will end up going out with the normal rule changes. I think we're going to try to implement those in between. So just keep an eye out again for the circulars for that information.
I guess if there's any specific questions from the audience, we can answer that and then move on.
Yeah, they didn't have any.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for sticking around, and we'll take our prizes.